Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of First and North, where we keep you up to date on all the happenings in the tough NFC North. All right, let's bring in the crew. Joining me this week on our edition of First and North from Fox in Detroit, there she is, Jennifer Hammond, representing the NFC-leading Detroit Lions, who pulled off an incredible comeback Sunday night. From Fox in Milwaukee, he's the godfather in Milwaukee, Tim Van Voren, where the Packers had the week to get healthy before taking on the lifeless Bears. And from Fox Minneapolis, Ahmad Hicks. This guy's always smiling, especially when they get lucky against a team like they did last week. And they survived that Jacksonville game. All right, let's take a look at the NFC North standings after Week 10. Detroit riding a 7-game win streak. Lions have the best record in the NFC after that dramatic comeback win in Houston. Vikings have won 2 games in a row. Green Bay's in 3rd place after the bye. And their last 3 lackluster, disappointing efforts. The Bears, well, they made a change. Yes, they did something. They fired their offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron. Something had to be done. Bears haven't scored a touchdown in the last 23 possessions. No touchdowns in their last 2 games. And the offense is broken and dysfunctional. Guys, I'm taking the floor right away. I have something to say after what's happened the last few days. Since their bye week 3 weeks ago, they are dead last in points, yards per play, 3rd down percentage. Let's see, did I forget anything? Yes, sacks, passing touchdowns. There's the board. The list goes on and on. If you compare this season's Bears offense through 9 games to last season's, this Bears offense, with Caleb Williams, with Keenan Allen at $23 million a year, with the number 9 pick in the draft, Rome Odunze, with DeAndre Swift, who's getting about $24 million, and Gerald Everett, is worse than the one under offensive coordinator Lou Canellis and Justin Fields. And by the way, Canellis was just fired last week by the Raiders. You can't make this up. Matt Eberflus is trying to save his own job right now. Not going to be easy. Thomas Brown, it's all on your shoulders. The passing game coordinator is now the new offensive coordinator for the Bears. But it's the same offensive system, same rookie quarterback, same players in a beat-up, injured offensive line. Now the Bears get to start the toughest remaining schedule in the NFL. Lions, Packers, Vikings, twice each, a healthy 49ers team, and the Seattle Seahawks on a Thursday night. The Bears under Matt Eberflus are 2-10 against the NFC North and 0-4 against the Packers. And I can go on and on about that, too. So let's head to Green Bay and bring in Tim. Because, Tim, this rivalry has been one-sided. Matt LaFleur hasn't lost to the Bears since taking over. Packers are coming off the bye week where they were able to get healthy. Tell me that Jordan Love is no healthier than he was a week ago. Please, give me some good news here in Chicago.
You know, there are some warts to the Packers, but you painted such a bleak picture, Lou. I can't even, in good conscience, bring them up. My goodness. 10 straight wins for the Packers over the Bears in this series. Jordan Love has continued to play for the bulk of the season, even though he hasn't been 100%. You would think the bye week would have helped him. We haven't heard from Jordan since they've been back at work, but we will on Wednesday. He was in Los Angeles at a Lakers game. He was shown with Anthony Davis, seemed to be in good spirits, everybody looking good, everybody having fun. So I don't think you're going to get your wish. I think Jordan Love's going to be ready to pull the controls on the Packers, and they're going to hope to find a second-half surge like they did last year.
Oh, man, does that worry me. All right, let's bring in Jen. Jen, in Detroit, what a comeback win for the Lions Sunday night.
Oh, that's the end of the question. I thought there was going to be something.
It was
unbelievable.
I was watching it. I can't believe it. I mean, everything the Lions are doing right now is working.
Yeah, everything is working except for that first half. And I'll tell you something. What's most amazing about that game is that afterwards, Jared Goff said he didn't feel tremendously horrible about his performance. A career-high 5 INTs. He had never done that before. He had thrown 4 once before in his career against the Bears back in 2018, but he had never thrown 5. And he said that he still liked what he saw. One of them was on a Hail Mary, and he said that's going to be a 50-50 jump ball. Also, one was tipped. One was a fumble that was called an INT. So by and large, Jared Goff wasn't feeling horrible. And the greatest thing Jared Goff has going for him right now is that he said that is not the worst that he has ever felt playing football. And so that he was able to lift himself up and find the fortitude to bring that team back. It is incredible that they came back from trailing 16 at the half. But you've got to give a lot of the credit, you guys, to that Detroit defense. They were challenged by Dan Campbell at halftime. He said, go out there, turn over the ball. Detroit is tied for interceptions in the league, and it's because of that number that they are now 8-1. And it was that challenge at halftime that led them to the very first pass in the second half to come up with a huge takeaway. CD has been incredible for the Lions, and he's certainly, Carlton Davis III is who I'm speaking of. They just call him CD. And CD not only had 1 INT, but he had 2 against C.J. Stroud, who looked really good in the first half, and those Texans were dominating. The only thing that wasn't going the Texans' way that Detroit had done very well early on was bottle them up in the run game, and they also held them very tightly on third down. Detroit's got a really good third down defense, and it kept them in that game through the half. And then when they started generating turnovers, and then they started to get the run game going in the second half, that's when things started to open up, and Stroud started making mistakes. Detroit started to get Jahmyr Gibbs outside. They also found Amon-Ra St. Brown, who hadn't been involved in the first half. So things really kind of got back to Detroit's style of play. They also took some shots downfield and had 2 huge catches from Jamison Williams, who was back after suspension. Probably 2 of the toughest catches of the ball game got Detroit to convert some big key third downs, and they sustained it on the leg of their kicker, a guy that they are now fondly calling in Detroit, wait for it, Legatron.
I
Jake
love
Bates.
that. I love
58
that.
and 52. Yeah, that kid from the Michigan Panthers, he was terrific. And really, it was a team effort. Aaron Glenn got a game ball. Jake Bates got a game ball. That defense, though, what can you say? They had just 97 yards allowed in the second half.
I find it no coincidence that the Lions and Chiefs right now are the 2 top teams in the NFL, and both of them with resilient efforts last week. Chiefs holding off the Broncos thanks to that field goal, and then what the Lions did. All right, I want to bring in Ahmad. Ahmad, Sam Darnold turns it over 3 times, and the Vikings still won. How did that happen?
I don't know, and it should have been 4 interceptions. One of them got negated due to a legal touching penalty. But I think it all stems back to Brian Flores' defense. And during that 2-game losing streak, everyone talked about how this defense had lost their momentum. They had lost their juice, and everyone was starting to figure out what their identity was. But that was without Blake Cashman. Insert Blake Cashman back into the lineup, and everything just clicked. Brian Flores talked about it this morning, the defensive coordinator, that is. And he was just talking about how Blake Cashman allows for Harrison Phillips to blitz more, Harrison Smith to blitz a little bit more, Ivan Pace, all those things. So when you look at this game and how they dominated the Jaguars in total yards, rushing yards, first downs, they held Jacksonville to 143 yards of total offense, not even 100 yards passing in this game. So the defense was stout, and I think that all stems back to Blake Cashman returning. But yes, Sam Darnold, 3 interceptions. He said after the game he needs to clean up his ball security and watch out who he's throwing the ball to. And head coach Kevin O'Connell said in their post-game speech, he's the quarterback to take us where we want to go in this season. So they're not losing any faith in Sam Darnold, although he's been struggling recently.
Ahmad, do you find any, I don't know, do you feel bad for us here in Chicago for what we're going through right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, by the way you opened this show, I felt like we should be preparing to talk about draft talk already in Chicagoland. I know how bad you guys want to be good. I went to SIUC, so I have a lot of Chicago-based friends, and I reached out to one of them. I said, you guys are in good hands, though. You have Caleb Williams for the next 10 years, possibly. And he said, man, I don't care about that. We want to win now. So, yes, I do feel your frustration.
All right, good. Now you guys know why I opened the show that way. All right, we need to take a break. When we come back, who is Thomas Brown, the new Bears play caller? I'll have more. And is there a level of concern in Minnesota? We just heard from Ahmad, but Sam Darnold continues to struggle. Ahmad doesn't sound like he's concerned. We'll continue to talk about it as we continue at First and North.
Know what's happening in college football right now? Players switching teams switching conferences. It changes every second, but big noon. It's on the same time and same channel on every TV in the country. College football is complicated, but big noon?
Hey, Hunt fan.
Welcome back to First and North. I'm Lou Canellis, and I'm at Fox 32 in Chicago. Let's bring back the crew. Jennifer Hammond joins us from Fox in Detroit. Tim Van Voren at Fox Milwaukee. Ahmad Hicks, Fox Minneapolis. Jen, Lions had a tough time moving the football at Houston. They were, though, without starting left tackle Taylor Decker, one of the game's best. Will he play next week?
Yeah, talking to Dan Campbell this morning, it sounds like Decker should be back, although he doesn't usually tip his hand too early. So he was talking a little bit about Jacksonville and some of the pressure they can apply up front, and he said that's going to be a tough job for Taylor or Skip, whoever is in there. So I think they can feel pretty good about what they've seen from Dan Skipper. It was a little rough to get going, but they allowed, they gave some help. They fortified that line in the pass protection. They're going to have to chip some guys. They're going to have to do things that they weren't able to do early on in that game against Houston. But I think that it's going to be a much better day for the Lions to get the run game going against Jacksonville.
All right, I want to go over to Ahmad. Ahmad, you mentioned the return of Blake Cashman and how big that was for the Vikings. This Vikings defense has really found itself after they were giving up 30 points a game a couple of weeks ago, right?
Yeah, I mean, it all starts with Blake Cashman, but Jonathan Grenard told me last week it starts with stopping the run, and that's something they were unable to do in those two games without Blake Cashman, because before he got injured, they had only gave up one 100-yard rusher in all those games prior. Once he went out, they allowed two 100-yard rushers, so now they're kind of getting back to their identity, and Cam Bynum said it best. We're not overcomplicating things. Coach Flores sat us down in the film room, and he showed us our tape from weeks 1 through 5 of what they were doing well, lining up in the right spot, making sure they're paying attention to all their checks, doing the small things. And he said, you guys are slipping on the small details, which are allowing all the more explosive plays that we're giving up all the points and all the touchdowns and things like that. So they just got back to the finer details, and now they're clicking on all cylinders. I mean, Jacksonville couldn't do anything. We know they were down to their backup quarterback, but this was once a first-round draft pick, and Mac Jones, and they made him look like Mr. Irrelevant, kind of. Yeah,
that's for sure. All right. Here in Chicago, I mentioned it in the first block, Bears fired offensive coordinator Shane Waldron. I actually complained about it. He's the 8th member of the Matt Eberflus coaching staff to have been fired or resigned the past 14 months. Now, who's Thomas Brown? This guy was a rising star in the league when Carolina hired him last season. He was brought in to help develop Bryce Young, and he took over play calling from Frank Reich, the head coach at that time, but didn't do much better than Reich. Brown interviewed for the Titans head coaching job during the offseason, interviewed for the Bears offensive coordinator job that went to Shane Waldron, and then settled on taking the passing game coordinator position with the Bears. Now, earlier in his career, Brown worked under Sean McVay in L.A., held different roles, won the Super Bowl with the Rams in 2021. So hopefully some of that success rubs off on him now as he calls plays for the Bears starting Sunday against Green Bay. In Green Bay, Tim, how do the Packers plan to attack the week after hearing about the news here in Chicago? Does Brown getting the job really change their game plan or no?
I don't think so, Lou. I think that the Packers are very focused on what they can do themselves. You get a bye in the middle of the season. You do a whole lot of measuring stick type things. What did we do well in the first half? What can we do well in the second half? And that's where the Packers are on this. They play the Bears this week, but they have the Niners after that. They have the Dolphins on Thanksgiving. They have a condensed schedule here with some tough games coming up, and they really feel it's on them to go at Chicago this week. Yes, they know that the Bears had so many problems with protection last week. The defensive linemen were kind of talking about licking their chops when they were in the locker room on Monday about this upcoming game. But that's defensively. They do need to increase their pass rush against anybody. You might get a good start on that against the Bears coming up on Sunday. Offensively, we've seen them really have a humming operation under Matt LaFleur at times in the past. Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love last year. Haven't really seen that this year. They're still kind of fits and spurts and trying to get things ironed out. They have had some explosive plays. They've had some stonewall plays. So they really think it's on them no matter who they're playing. Now, you could get well against the Bears, and that could be a springboard, but they think this is internal improvement.
Let me ask you about the defense. I want to go back to it because, and I get it, a healthy Jordan Love and Josh Jacobs has been terrific wearing a Packers uniform. But to me, what's been most impressive has been that defense in Green Bay, right now tied in the league for second in takeaways. Will the defense have Jair Alexander back?
They expect to have Jair Alexander back this week, and a rookie safety, Evan Williams, has been a nice player in the back end as well. He did not play against the Lions right before the bye. So the takeaways have definitely been a recipe for success in Green Bay this year. And you see at the bottom of the screen there, tied for second, Xavier McKinney was the first 5 games out of the box. He had an interception. So his free agency acquisition has been a big thing there. They've kind of been banking on those takeaways, to be honest with you. They do need to shore up the run defense a little bit, and as you can see on third down, they've been pretty good. They just really have been inconsistent on both sides of the ball. They're still sort of feeling out a new defensive coordinator this year, and that's Jeff Hafley on the defensive side of things. So they're just not really humming, to go back to what I said in the last answer, but they're 6-3, and they think they have an ample opportunity to improve on a more regular basis.
Jen, were you guys impressed with the Packers? I mean, with the way the Lions went into Lambeau Field, I would assume no.
Well, you know what? I think what the Lions try to do these days, and certainly winning those games in Minnesota and at Green Bay were 2 of the measuring stick games for the Lions during this season because they wanted to test themselves on the road against a really tough NFC North. And at that point in time, the Packers were playing better than anyone. But I think the Lions' goal here is to continue to stick to what they do best, and that is run the ball, and that is take away the ball. And then the rest is up to giving them what the defense offers. And for Jared Goff, I mean, he's been sensational throwing short, but he has also shown that he can throw deep. Guys like J-Mo, who wasn't even playing in that game against the Packers, I mean, has been a big threat for that offense. And also Tim Patrick. And now let's not undersell the point that they will have Zadarius Smith in the lineup coming up this week against Jacksonville. So Detroit is heading in the right direction, and I don't think there's any team in the NFL right now, after this gauntlet they've been through with 3 of the last 4 on the road and winning 7 in a row, that scares them.
Real quickly, Jen, any talk about Aiden Hutchinson and when he might return? Last week I wanted to ask you, I had heard that there was still the chance of Hutchinson coming back for a Super Bowl run. True?
Well, there are people that say that, and in fact, the night that the injury happened in Dallas, his dad texted us on a post-game radio show that I do here in Detroit, and he said he should be good to go for the Super Bowl. A tib-fib break that's clean is something that can heal within a year, but they don't have a whole year. I mean, that injury happened in October, and they've got until February, early February, so I don't see it happening. I know there's a lot of talk about that. I just don't find it to be realistic, but I'm not a doctor. Crazier things have happened.
All right, time for another timeout. When we come back, we set you up for next Sunday's games in the NFC North.
The intensity is on a whole new level.
Hell's Kitchen is cooking with
Head chefs only.
Head chefs only? Eagles only.
This is going to be a savage competition.
Fox Thursdays.
She's a bulldog. It's hot.
Big egos.
Get it together.
We do this every day.
Mean big blow-ups for Gordon.
Would you eat this?
No, chef.
But you expect them to eat it. Where is the passion?
Hell's Kitchen Head Chefs only. All new Thursdays on Fox and watch anytime on Hulu.
All right, we are back here on First and North. Here are the matchups for the NFC North in Week 11. Oldest rivalry in the NFL adds another chapter. Bears host the Packers. Green Bay has won the last 10 meetings. Lions return home to host the Jaguars, who have yet to beat an NFC North team. Vikings stay on the road, and they go to Nashville. They'll battle the Titans, who are also winless against the NFC North. Jennifer Hammond rejoins us from Fox in Detroit. Tim is at Fox in Milwaukee. Ahmad, Fox Minneapolis. Ahmad, I'm going to start with you. Titans go back to Will Levis at quarterbacks. At quarterback, that is.
Yeah.
Vikings worried?
No, I don't think they should be worried at all because Will Levis has yet to face a Brian Flores type defense. So I think he's going to be confused. I think he's going to be like Sam Darnold was in New York when he was seeing ghosts on the field and things like that. I think this defense relishes on facing young quarterbacks in the National Football League. I know a lot of chatter here in Minnesota is about Sam Darnold, his inconsistencies the last couple of weeks. But something I told one of our reporters the other day, he's throwing the ball to Justin Jefferson. He threw 3 interceptions targeting Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson lives and dies on 50-50 balls and just having a chance to make a play. So I'm not going to sit here and be frustrated that Sam Darnold is trying to force the ball to Jets. But I do think he needs to just trust this offense a little bit more, trust KOC and the system. We all have to remind ourselves, like, he has yet to play 4 to 5 games with Jordan Addison, TJ Hockenson, Justin Jefferson, and Aaron Jones. So they still need a little bit of time to build that chemistry. So I'm not frustrated. I'm not worried about Sam Darnold at all in the slightest bit, and I don't think the defense will be worried about Will Levis.
You are not worried about Darnold's confidence being shattered?
No, absolutely not. I mean, look at this offense. Like, all he has to do is stop trying to be the home run guy or the guy to go out there and go hit the four-point play like Steph Curry. Be the assist man. Just pass it down. Get it to your weapons and let them go make plays. I think also what we don't talk about is how teams are covering Justin Jefferson. Like, Jacksonville threw the tank at Jets to make sure he didn't get any open looks. He was seeing double and triple teams, and sometimes when your coach is calling plays for that guy and you're waiting for him to get open, and then you have a new left tackle in Cam Robinson, things just, you don't have as much time as maybe you would have had in those first couple of weeks. So no, I'm not losing any confidence in Sam Darnold. I think he and Coach O'Connell figure things out, and they're ready for whatever teams throw at them the rest of this way.
Ahmad, well said. I like that. Lions back home after not missing a beat, playing 4 or 5 games on the road. Now a flurry of home games for Detroit. And Jennifer, Jags are first. Any worries?
No, I don't think there's any worries at all. The only worry that should be facing this team right now is complacency, and I don't even think that's a possibility because what they did to the Tennessee Titans in that game in between those 2 NFC North divisional games, Dan Campbell had his team's full focus, and there you see the schedule upcoming for Detroit. Taking a look at 4 out of the next 5 that are at home, 3 of those 4 teams, their records are a combined 10-19 in Jacksonville, Indy, and Chicago. Green Bay, the only one with a winning record at 6-3. So for the Lions, I think the biggest test in this next stretch where they've got so many at home is going to be to make sure that they play their brand of football and that they don't become complacent. And based on what I've seen from this team so far this season and how Dan Campbell has prepared them and the way that they have focused and just measured themselves against only what they do week to week on tape, I don't find that to be any concern whatsoever here in Detroit.
How excited right now are Lions fans?
They're booking trips for Vegas, or sorry, this is New Orleans. Last year was Vegas, and they were booking those. But this is a little bit earlier, and they are starting to talk about New Orleans on February 9th. There are a lot of fans that we saw, and I don't know if you guys noticed in the game in Houston, they travel so well. It is incredible how the Lions fans just continue to show up week after week on the road for this team. They're even talking ahead already to Indianapolis in 2 weeks that there's probably going to be more Lions fans than Colts fans there because it's just a short drive to the west. But for this team, the fan base is certainly over the moon. And the fact that they did something at the trade deadline and got Zadarius Smith, they are all in on Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes and everything that they are doing to make this team a Super Bowl champion this season.
I get the excitement. Tim, since the 2010 NFC Championship game, Packers are 22-3 against the Bears. And I get it. Hallis, Lombardi, Peyton, Bart Starr, Urlacher, Favre. They made it a rivalry, but the matchup has been so one-sided, and it really hurts me to say this. Do the Packers and their fans even consider this a rivalry game anymore?
Not really, to be honest with you. Maybe those of our vintage, Lou, a little bit. But folks who are looking at this game now, and Josh Jacobs just came to the Packers this year. He said, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't really. I understand there's history there, but I'm not stirred up in this. Guys are not talking about it. You can see why. It's the Packers, all the games under Matt LaFleur, and as you talked about since B.J. Raji was doing his interception of Caleb Haney way back in the playoffs. It's been a Green Bay story here in this matchup. So the Packers, Aaron Rodgers said he owned the fans at Soldier Field. The Packers definitely have owned this rivalry. I think the Hail Mary's in the game plan for this week, and they're feeling pretty confident about going back to Soldier Field.
Don't do it to us again. Last time the Bears beat Green Bay, 2018, when they clinched the NFC North title. Mitch Trubisky, by the way, was our quarterback back then. Tariq Cohen was in the league, and Allen Robinson was the Bears' leading receiver. Here's hoping the Bears' offense just comes alive Sunday in front of the hometown crowd. The crowd deserves it. Jennifer, Tim, Ahmad, great work as always. For my NFC North crew, I'm Lou Canellis. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.